All right. So it's going to be really important to understand how and why objections happen. And I don't want to prepare you to handle them. I want to prepare you to prevent them from happening to begin with. Most of the strategies that coaches and entrepreneurs are teaching today, the way they teach you those strategies are the reasons objections are happening the way they are. It's those strategies create objections. And it's no fault to the person teaching the strategy. It's that most business owners today have zero skill set or knowledge of human behavior sales psychology. They don't have education on it. They don't have a background on it. They don't study it. They don't know it exists, some of them. And so the strategies that they're teaching you are strategies that people think, oh, it's normal. It's normal that we get all these objections. And I actually disagree. I don't think that getting objections is normal at all. I think that getting objections is common. I think it's very common. And I think that we can prevent about 90% of them. You cannot prevent them 100%. But I want to prepare you to prevent them around 90% of the time. So there's some things you need to understand. And there's some things that you need to be doing that can really help you prevent these. So the thing that I want you to understand is that you will get these objections from time to time. Okay. There's no strategy out there or methodology at this point that's going to help you prevent this 100% of the time. But for the most part, we can get rid of those. Okay. Again, I do not believe that these are normal, and I don't want you to entertain that in order to get sales, you have to spend all this time overcoming objections and handling. Like, to me, it's like you're getting in the boxing ring. We're going to handle it, like fight our way together through this. I think that people making an investment decision is like a partnership. So you're both in agreement. You both want the same thing and you're both in agreement. Handling objections is like they don't agree and you're fighting them on that. For me, objections happen for a psychological reason. We're going to talk about how to prevent those today. But what I want you to understand is that they are not normal. Okay? They're common. They're not normal. You can actually prevent about 90% of them. I'm not going to normalize it. That's my stance on this. I don't get objections. I don't handle objections. I don't entertain objections. And I don't believe that has to be part of selling. Okay, so we have to first understand selling it's about emotional human behavior, right? When we are selling something, we are providing a solution to somebody. We're not selling somebody something they don't want. Sales is about providing solutions. It's being of service. And this is a huge mindset shift we have to have. When we are selling, it is not like, oh, I'm selling me. I'm selling my program. I need to make a sale to pay my bills. That is not the stuff you should be thinking. We are thinking, can I really help this person? Do I have the solution to the problem they have? Have I identified that problem and uncovered what it really is? Can I really help them? Do I really feel confident that I'm the person that can help them with that? Do they really want this? Can they be successful with me? I want to make sure I'm providing them the perfect solution. That should be your mindset. So that's number one, right? Selling is all emotional. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you buy in the world. It's an emotional investment. When you buy a car, that is an emotional investment. And if you dig deep enough into the psychology of why they're buying the vehicle, it's an emotional reason, right? I want you to, and people invest in things they already have because they're not getting what they want from something else, right? So you might think, oh, they're already working with a mentor, they're already working with someone, or they already have someone like this, and they're already invested in that. That does not mean that they won't invest with you. If they're looking for a solution and you have it, they will invest. Okay. You have to completely detach from outcomes because it's none of your business if someone can or cannot afford you. It's none of your business what you think they can afford. Unless you're a financial advisor, don't mingle in their financials. It's none of your business. Let them decide how they're going to do that. Let them decide if they're worthy and if they can afford it and they want it and they'll find the money and let them figure that out. not your responsibility. Equally, it's none of your business if they say yes or no. You have to detach from that as well, right? It's like someone going to a car dealership and being like, yeah, we're going to think about it and we'll come back. If that car dealership went inside, stomped his feet, slammed his hands off the desk, got all upset and was like, let's shut the place down. Someone said no. And he didn't go after his next sale and he didn't go out and serve the next couple or the next person. What would be the point of that? Right? If you're going to get so attached to everything and then make it mean something about you, you're going to have a really hard time with sales. Okay. So we are finding and we are solving problems for people. This is the key. We are finding and solving problems for people who have the problem and want it solved. We are not selling and we are not providing solutions for people who don't have the problem we solve, and also who have it and don't want it solved. You see how that kind of goes together? So part of the reason why people get so attached is they're talking to people and they're trying to sell to people who, number one, do not have the problem. And even if they do, they don't want it solved. And yet you're trying to push that on them. Okay. So that's not our job. So you have to let that go. Okay. So let's talk about the ways that you can start to prevent some of these objections from happening to begin with. Number one, it comes down to your invitations. It's the way that you invite someone to explore or apply to work with you or to learn what it would be like to work with you. It's the way that you do that. It's the way that you approach it. It's the way that you say it. It's what you're saying and how you're saying it, right? Your messaging is going to be number one, right, with your mindset. Your messaging is going to be one of the most important elements in who you attract and who you call in. And so your invitation is going to be critical, okay? You really want to make sure that we are focusing on the one promise that you offer inside of the one process or curriculum, a way that you do that, and the offer that you do that in, the container. And you have to own that and be so confident in that, and so crystal clear on what that is and what that looks like, and be really confident in the process you can take people through. And then your invitation needs to be really specific, like this is for you if, and not for you if. Like be just really clear. Speak to the actual person. Speak to your champion client. And then be really crystal clear on the call to action, like what is the next step? But they need to know what they're doing. If you're just like, oh, I have this program, I have this offer, it's so amazing. Comment below if you're interested. I don't know what you mean. If I'm interested in what? Like talking to you about this, signing up for this, like learning more about it. Like, I don't understand what you're asking me to do. Clear call to action, right? I have open spots to work with me in this way. We'll do this. This is for you if. Comment this word below or DM me this word below to apply, or to get more information on this program, or to join me in this program, right? Like, or if you would like to sign up for this program, like we have to be, our invitations need to be more clear and they need to be more specific, not just on the offer, but like, who is it for? And what exactly is the next step they're taking? Because some people think it's just a free call, or you're just going to send me to a sales page and I get to check it out. If you want people to actually be interested, your call to action should specifically and directly tell them, do this to apply for the program. Do this to join the program. Do this to book your sales call and enroll in the program. Like, do this to learn more information about this program. Like, it needs to be really specific like that, because that's what's going to determine what type of people you attract. People that are ready to go, people that are not ready to go, people that are actually interested, and maybe people that are just freebie seeking or something, right? Or they want to be shipped over to your sales page because they don't want to have a conversation with you because they're not really serious and they don't want you to pressure them right now, or whatever, right? Very, very clear. Your invitation, I see this a lot, and it's like, this invitation is not, like, I wouldn't take this step. I wouldn't do it. Like, it's not clear. And the message leading up to it is not. So that's number one. If you really want to weed out getting into conversations with people that are not qualified and they're not a good fit and they're not even actually serious, you have to be more clear in your message and your invitation, okay? That invites them to come talk to you or take the next step. That's going to be critical. The next thing you need to be looking at is your qualification process. You have to really, 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 really be thinking about that champion client. You have to speak to her or him. You have to talk specifically to that one person. You have to speak their language and talk about the thing they care about right now. If you're selling broke people problems and you're trying to get, a 6 or multiple 6 or 7 figure client, that isn't going to align very well. Your qualification process needs to be in place. So you need to, number one, know exactly who your champion client is. Okay. I cannot do that for you. Nobody can do that for you. That's the inner work and the clarity work you have to do. And you can improve it as you go, but you have to start that process. And then you also have to make sure that the way that you want to close sales. So if you want to qualify people through a triage call, so then do a 10 or 15 minute triage call, but qualify them before you get into a 20, 30 minute enrollment call or sales conversation, right? If you want to do an application, so you want to have people, your invitational call to action is like, hey, fill out this application to apply, or click here to go to the application to apply. If you want people to go to an application so that you're qualifying them, then you can do that. If you want to get in the DMs and have maybe a few texts and audios back and forth where you're collecting specific information and data, and you're asking qualifying questions that tell you that this person meets your champion client criteria, and there's someone that you want to work with and they might be a great fit and have success with you, then get in the DMs and ask those things and have that conversation. I think part of the sales process is like people need to slow down to speed up their sale. Everybody is rushing to get these sales, and almost nobody is taking the time to qualify. And the sales will actually come faster and easier and more often when you're actually selling to people who want what you're selling versus chasing down people who could care less and are not interested. And so it is worth taking the time and slowing down in these conversations and this qualification process to speed up the actual sale, which is ultimately at the end what you want, right? So your qualification process, it doesn't matter how you do it. It gets to look however you want. Like I said, you can have application, you can have a DM conversation, you can have a sales call or a triage call. You can have a mix of these things. It doesn't even matter, but you just need to know what you want this process to look like, what feels good for you and supports you. And then you need to execute it over and over and over until you master it. And until you start to see your conversions go up and up, and you start to see that your process is working and you're bringing in more and more of the right people. In the beginning, it might be a little messy. You might be talking to all kinds of people, but that's where you can look. Where's the breakdown? Where is the breakdown that's bringing these types of people? And what do we flip real quick and make a tweak so that this process can work better? And then you test that and then you get it going. This is a testing process. This is not like, oh, I did it once. This is not a one and done. All right. Just like anything else, it's over and over and over to test it and get data and then make adjustments and tweaks to improve it and do it again and keep doing that. And eventually you'll have a really streamlined process that works really, really well. And then you'll know, if I speak to this amount of people today, I'll close this many sales. You're not going to know that until you get a process that you're perfecting. And the only way to perfect it is to do it over and over and over and over again. Qualification is going to be key, or you're just going to find yourself in conversations with everybody. And you're going to start stacking no's and stacking the objections. It's just not going to feel good to do the process. Okay, sales is amazing when you know and understand that you're speaking to people who want what you have, right? But if you're not clear on what that looks like and you're not clear on who that is and what you help people do, then yes, your messaging is going to be a little wonky and it's going to call in all kinds of weird, wonky people. So the more clear you get and the more less, and the more simplified you focus on that one promise for that one champion client inside this one offer and curriculum, I'm telling you, the easier this is going to be. So that qualification can look however you want it to look, but you need to start putting the process in place, and you can tweak and change anytime you want. If you find that you want to do it another way or something else worked a lot better and you'd prefer that, that's fine. Okay, the third thing to really prevent objections is going to be understanding your sales responsibility. And this is going to be a skill set that you're going to have to learn in the program. And it might take you a few years, really, like a couple years to really get it. And this is because most business owners are not sales professionals. Most business owners are not educated on sales psychology. Like that's not typically why they started their business. So most business owners don't have that skill to begin with. And in the business world, it's the foundation to a business, even surviving, is that you know how to sell and that you know how to effectively communicate with people and you know how to build relationships and trust really fast. If you can't do those things, it's typically because you don't have the skill set, the education, or the background, which most business owners do not. However, it's a skill set. It's not a strategy. Sales is not a strategy. It's a skill set. Okay. When you practice over and over and over and over and over again at one thing, you start to build a muscle and you start to learn how to do it because you learn what works and what doesn't. You start to perfect that process. And before you know it, you built a skill. I hated sales when I was younger. In my first business, I didn't even really understand. I didn't know what sales was really. I sucked at it. I hated it. My sister was in outbound direct sales my whole life growing up. And she always used to be like, come sit beside me and just listen. And I'm like, I would never do this for a living. I hate sales. I want nothing to do with it. If I was on the other end, I wouldn't buy anything from you. Like I hated it. And it was just because I didn't understand it. And so I've spent the last basically 20 years, 2 decades of studying. I have over 30,000 hours into sales conversations in my own business, as well as in multiple millionaire coaches, their businesses, training sales teams for multiple 7- and 8-figure coaches. I've spent the last 20 years immersing myself in all of this. And I'm still learning, and I'm still getting better, and I'm still improving, and I'm still reading the books, and I'm still practicing, and I'm still studying. So my success has been 20 years in the making. You're not going to come in here and in 5 minutes learn how to do this. You have to build the skill, the muscle. You have to learn it. Okay. And so your responsibility is going to be to come into this program and study this and learn it and practice it. You have to put it into action. It can't be theory. You can't just read it and think about it. You have to actually do it. Okay. And so part of this is going to be understanding that your responsibility in a sales conversation is really going to be understanding that it is not your job to get anybody to do anything you want them to do. It shouldn't be about your personal agenda. We said it before, and I'll say it again. Sales is simply you finding and solving problems only for people who have the problem and they also want it solved. That's your only job. And that doesn't always mean people are going to buy from you. That doesn't mean that every single person that signs up for something is a fit for you and is going to buy your stuff. That doesn't mean that everyone who says yes actually does it. That doesn't mean that every time you get in a sales conversation, they're going to buy from you. It means that you are being very specific and clear on your responsibility and what their responsibility is, and you're not getting attached to it, right? If I'm having a conversation in any which way with somebody and they're like, yeah, if they don't meet my criteria, I'm not trying to get them in any program just to get the sale. Or if I'm in a conversation with someone about my program and, they're coming up to all this resistance and they're spiraling in front of me and they're having all these things, I'm going to give them a moment of clarity. I'm going to tell them maybe what they could go do to kind of heal some of that and fix some of that. But I'm not going to try to get them through that and get them to buy my program just so I can make the sale. I only want to work with people who want to work with me and are going to do the work. And if they can't even have a conversation without spiraling a mile a minute, they're probably not going to be in a place mentally to do the work. So your job is not I need to get those sales. And you have to remove your own agenda. You really do, because it's an emotional process for the other person. So if they feel pressured, if they feel like you're not being genuine, if they feel like all you care about is getting the sale, if they care about, or if they feel like you're pushing and being kind of aggressive, or you're not listening because you're so focused on getting the sale, they're out. You will get objections. And that's why those are created, because we're not following a process that works with human behavior. We are doing all the things that go against it, put people's sales resistance sky high. Their walls come right up. Their barriers block them in a box, and they can't hear you. They can't think. They're out. They have checked out emotionally in all the ways. And it's usually the way that we're doing things that create that outcome. That same person will go buy from somebody else tomorrow, next week. It's that we're not doing this properly. We have to have a really neutral stance. Like, I literally do not want your money. If you don't feel 1,000%, this is the best decision and the best next step for you, and you're all in 100%. If you don't want this, I don't want this either. You have to be able to detach and genuinely take that approach. You can't be telling people what they need to do, or telling people they're doing it wrong, or if you don't buy my program, you're not going to have this, or if you don't stop doing that and do this instead, then you're never going to, you can't talk to leads that way. Sometimes when you're working with clients, you have these types of conversations. That's a different scenario. But when you're trying to move somebody through a process to make an investment with you to come get your coaching, your mentorship, your service, your support, and you're being that way, you're being aggressive, and you're not building trust, and instead you're actually creating resistance with them, of course they're going to give you an objection, and of course they're not going to buy. So that's really not what we're trying to do. Okay, so I want you thinking about that. And then the next and final thing is how you host your conversations. If you're getting in a conversation with someone, again, if you're jumping all over the place and you're not listening, and someone is saying something and you're not reading between the lines, and you're just going through like it's an interrogation, like you have a checklist of questions you need to ask and you're spitfiring, you're not going to get the sale. The way that you host your conversations, number one, you both should be in agreement. This is a sales call. It's not a strategy call. It's not a get to know you call. It's definitely not a coaching call. This isn't a call to be like, let's talk about all the ways that you can help me, and in 7 years when I'm ready, we'll do it. This is a call where someone is like, I want your program. I want to work with you. I want in. What's the next step? I'm so ready for this. Now we are both in agreement that the probability of you getting on this call and enrolling and making the payment is pretty high, because we both know that's why we're here. A lot of entrepreneurs have sales calls, but they're like strategy calls, because you know that you want to sell and you want to have that conversation, but the way you positioned it, the other person thinks this is like a free strategy call. So they show up with zero intention of pulling out a credit card and paying you today. And then you're like, oh, I don't get it. What the heck? They thought they were just getting on to have a good conversation. Again, that is because your invitation's not clear. When you're hosting a sales conversation, you need to have a structure, and it needs to be disciplined. It's like, let's get on the same page with why we're here, get their confirmation. Great. Let's go ahead and move on to the next thing. Tell me about this. Perfect. Let me ask you a couple questions about that, just so I'm clear. Okay, perfect. So basically, this is what I just heard. Okay, awesome. We agree to that. Cool. Let me ask you the next thing. Tell me a little bit about this. Okay, cool. Let me confirm. And you're going through that process where you're gathering, 4 or 5 very specific things that you need to know that tell you this is your champion client who's ready. And it's also, we're using human behavior psychology in the way that we're asking and what type of questions we're asking, so that the other person is already getting the clarity they need and making the decision to make this investment. And you're not even having to ask them. Okay. And we have the sales call conversion framework, the steps listed in a PDF for you. You can print that and follow that on every sales call. You'll close more sales calls than you ever have. Your conversions will go through the roof if you follow that process. We've used that for over 10 years in every single one-on-one sales conversation. It's never failed us yet. So the way you host your conversations is critical. I would follow that process to the T if you are doing sales conversations, 100%. And I wouldn't change a thing, and I wouldn't try to make it your own. It already works as it is. So I would follow that. Okay. So those are the 4 things. I want you to, hopefully you wrote those down, or you can listen to this again, write those things down, and then you use the sales call conversion framework. You follow those steps when you're on your call to create the structure. It'll be intimate and kind of personalized inside of the conversation, of course, with each person, but you need a framework. Otherwise, you're going from here to here to here, and your questions don't make sense. The conversation's all over the place. It's supposed to be a 15-minute thing. Turns out to be an hour and a half, and there's no sale at the end. We're not doing that here. Just, I have it perfectly laid out for you, and it's worked and it's been proven for over 10 years. Just follow that process, okay, in your calls, especially if you're not converting your calls right now. Follow the process. You will see conversions. You'll see better conversations and more effectiveness inside of the structure of your calls. And ultimately, you'll just get better results. Okay. All right. So go ahead and get those things printed out. Start looking at where you need to make some improvements in your calls. Start following that process. And